welcome back to a new season of Keep Calm and Mental Health On. Today I'm here with a special guest to talk about student mental health, social media among youth, and her own work in the mental health space. Before we dive in, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners, share a bit about you and your advocacy in the mental health space?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Hi, my name is Lipika Devara. I am a youth mental health advocate. I have my own nonprofit. It is called AWE. When you think of it, you know how it's the emotion awe. So that's what our team members kind of came up with. But yeah, we're addressing wellness and equity. We really focus on mental health and bridging that gap with accessibility within mental health and your physical health that kind of plays into the role of mental health. So we really hone into mental health and the accessibility of it. So that's what Awe does and a little bit of work about that. But other than that, some of my hobbies are professionally saying I love to journal, I love to build Legos, collect miniature things, so all sorts of things. But yeah, thanks for having me.
That sounds great. Thank you for being here. And since this new season of the podcast focuses on the digital world a little more, I just want to ask, what is one thing that you feel like you've missed out in your life because you were tuned into the noise of the digital world?
Hmm, that is a really deep question. Um, I feel like one thing I kind of missed out because I was so tuned into social media and just, digital media is I feel like in high school I was so overstimulated and watching it way too much where I just kind of forgot to appreciate the small moments of life. I feel like we tend to overlook it just because whenever we're focusing on a bigger goal and we're trying to achieve something that is very long term, we tend to forget about the small steps that kind of takes us there, the grunt work. But I think I just kind of forgot to be grateful and more appreciative of those small moments. And I just got really just too honed in on the goal that I was just focusing on so much. And through social media, I just kind of amplified it more.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you talked a bit about your nonprofit, AWE. So, what are some of the projects that you've worked on to already promote mental health awareness?
Yeah, we worked on a lot of different projects. We before we kind of just honed in on mental health, we were working on a lot of different initiatives. We just started when we were in high school, so a lot of it was trial and error. You start from something, so it just kind of develops over time into the initiative and the message that you believe in. So when we first started, as I was a junior in high school and my team members were seniors in high school, we just kind of met after a campaigning work that we done with Red Cross and we wanted to start something like-minded, like, thinking of something that we all want to do that we're passionate about and not just for a college essay or a college app or a resume kind of thing, but want something that we're genuinely passionate about. And that's how we came up with AWE. So we did a lot of different events in the beginning with like environment and armed conflict. So we focused on a lot of different things like just basic trash pickups, but organizing like, um, you know, environmental awareness days, that kind of thing. But then we kind of pivoted to mental health because we realized it was a key point that isn't talked about, especially in the BIPOC community. And there's so many, it's mental health is just so nuanced. And we just realized that there's such a gap in the accessibility to the resources, whether that be through insurance or prior authorization. We just saw there's a gap and needs to be addressed and needs to put in work to do that. So we started doing events that were more mental health focused, and the initiatives started to become that. So, one awe branded, I like to say, initiative that we've been doing annually now successfully every year is called One Reason to Live. It's where, people will write, it's very self-explanatory what their one reason to live. So we have done this project with a lot of different orgs. One prominent one being Life Path Systems. They're a very big mental health organization and initiative in Texas, and they work all sorts of mental health. And so we have been doing this campaigning with them every year, and they're, inpatient, but also just people that work there, staff members, actual patients wrote down their responses. We got a lot of like some of the example responses where we got a lot of, I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to be able to live. I'm grateful for water. Like, I'm grateful. for those small things that we just kind of forget to be grateful for that some people don't even have access to. So just seeing that people are grateful for life in general just is so empowering, and we realize the impact of such a small activity like this has such a big message. So that's one like activity that we have been doing for so long. Another thing that we've been doing is called mental health awareness workshops. So we've been doing this for 3 years now. It started off as like a passion project of mine, and now it's just built into something that I collaborate with other organizations for through AWE. And it's just like, think of it like a interactive station rotation kind of thing where we rotate between interactive stations that are mental health focused with panelists that are in the mental health space. So stations being like letters to future self, gratitude challenge, what are having a moderated discussion on your academic stressors, or having moderated discussions with parents, like an intergenerational group with parents, kids, talking about what your day-to-day life looks like so a parent and child can understand their days and, sympathize with each other, but also get to understand their struggles too. That kind of thing. And then panelists being we had psychologists, psychiatrists, we had school teachers, counselors, yoga teachers. So just a big variety of people coming in talking about different mental health topics like attachment styles. We had a psychologist come in and talk about different attachment styles. I'm sure avoidant or the anxious type, and they did like a live demo, that kind of thing. And we had like other orgs coming in, pitching and tabling their resources. So it's just been a successful initiative that we've been leading and actually are planning to do for this year as well. That's in the works. But yeah, I know that was a long response, but yeah.
That's amazing. It seems like you guys are doing a lot of great work. And I love how you touched on how mental health is so nuanced and that in the BIPOC community, it's often like marginalized and not talked about. So you seem to have done a lot of projects with your peers. So have there been any challenges with mental health stigma in your community or with just being a young person trying to make change?
Definitely. I think we all start from somewhere. So there's always going to be something that just is hard to get through, but you will. It's just that mindset thing. For example, when you're doing these events, right? Event planning, it's a lot of work. You're managing marketing, your outreach, you're trying to do the structure, the backbone of the event, working with multiple vendors and different people who want to sponsor your event, tabling, trying to get volunteers. It's a lot of different like little bubbles that you're in, like departments that you're in. So a challenge being is like communication errors, sometimes you communicate one thing, but it just gets translated into another thing. So I think it's just for me, that was one of the biggest things, that communication barriers. And for me, how I came about, especially as a young advocate, in mental health, you have to advocate for yourself. It's in that name. I personally hate confrontation, and I I really try to stray away from it. But what I've just learned being in the professional setting, if you want, and when you're working on your projects, things like that, you have to speak up and use your voice and advocate for yourself, because if not, then it's not going to go your way, or some kind of mishap is going to happen, and whatever the outcome maybe wouldn't be what you wanted. So I think for me that was a very big lesson that I had to come over. And that just you take small steps. It's not just gonna You're not gonna get over it like this. So for me it was taking it bit by bit, um you know communicating with my peers, and then the exact and all that kind of thing. And eventually I learned like your voice is very important and use it. So yeah, and even then we're not perfect. We're imperfect human beings, so we learn as we go, and that's the beauty of it. And yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned, it's really stressful hosting all these events, and you're also a student in college at UT Dallas, and you're minoring in music, which was really interesting to me. And honestly, like I love art for healing, and I noticed that you mentioned that. So can you talk about music's impact on your mental health, even throughout your advocacy journey, and why it's so important to find these outlets?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, Genuinely, I feel like when you're doing any kind of work, and for me, yes, it's mental health advocacy, but any line of work or any pipeline that you're going through, you need some kind of outlet to just because if you're too focused on one thing and you're not honing in on your hobbies or activities, sometimes it just kind of falls through. You need to be kind of multifaceted in that sense in your life. And I feel like for me, that like you mentioned, that outlet has been singing and music. It has been for a long time. I think anytime that I feel overwhelmed or kind of starting to feel like that burnout, of where I'm just managing way too much, I think I just always resort or revert back to music. I love to sing, love to listen to music. I think that's just something that has been ingrained in me. I feel like I've been doing it for so long, but also I'm so grateful to say it's an outlet because some people don't even have that kind of privilege, and I'm saying that from a place of privilege. And yeah, definitely just honing in my hobbies was one thing that really helped me in my advocacy work. And I just listen to music whenever I get overwhelmed, like I said, and even I'm trying to incorporate music into the advocacy work, trying to, like you mentioned, like art and healing, because music therapy is a big thing now that's happening, because music is known to just stimulate the brain and also helps with your mental health, right? So that's something that I'm also looking into. But as of now, like that's just been one of my biggest hobbies and outlets of expression. I just listen to music, just put on my headphones, or like I'll sing one of my favorite songs. But yeah, it's just a nice outlet for me. And as a minor now at UTD, it's just been so nice. I feel like I've been taking a bunch of psych classes back to back to back. And literally just the music classes that I have in my like school schedule is just so nice. Just gives me a nice break from all the content that I'm getting, like that content overload. And yeah, and it's just nice.
Yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air almost, and it is really important to find those things. And you're a college student, you're working a lot with music and in the mental health space. So, and we're also growing up in a time where technology is so present in our lives. So, how do you really make time for your own mental health, even as an advocate? And how do you practice mindful consumption of social media and other digital content?
Yeah. Um, like I said, I'm imperfect. So that is also something that I'm working on, being mindful about my consumption and what I consume. I think I got pretty good at controlling what I consume, but how much I consume of it is something that I'm still working on. I think it's a lot of discipline and just knowing the consequences of your actions is so important. And I think we all know it in the back of their head, but we still tend to do it because, of external things. Either you're trying to distract yourself or something's happening in your life that's your outlet. There are many reasons why people do that. Or you just lazy. Like, there's just so many reasons why we do it. And for me, like that's still a work in progress. So I don't think I have the greatest insight on how to manage that. But I will say, to the question of like sorry, what was your question in the beginning part?
Yeah, how you make time for yourself, for your own mental health, even throughout your advocacy.
Yes, how to make time. I think just going back to what I was talking about, like investing in your hobbies. I mean, honestly, literally like capitalizing and just investing time. Like for me, what I do and what works for me is I will block out like time over the weekend in my schedule for me to do my hobbies. So I'll block out some time to, practice music or whatever music that I have, repertoire that I have for that week. I will sit down and do it, and that's relaxing to me. Or for me also, it's also honing into my hobbies, but also understanding like me as well. I'm a person is very much of an ambivert, and I need my alone time as much as I love being with people, and that just fuels me. I also need my alone time to refuel and recharge. So I will make sure, that's usually a weekend for me. I will make sure sometime over the weekend or Friday night or Saturday night where I'm just not doing anything and watching a TV show or doing something that doesn't require a lot of thinking. I just kind of just get some time for myself. So I think that's how I manage myself when I'm doing this line of work, but also not burning out, as
Yeah,
students.
that's super important to, find that balance. And, with the focus of this season, I also want to ask, like, what do you think, like, social media and AI, especially with how much it's increasing, how do you think it's going to impact our mental health? But I also know that, you're in advocacy. So, how do you think that it can also be used wisely, to promote messages and create spaces of healing online?
Yeah, I think like if I understand your question right, you're saying like how can AI be used in the right way with mental health, right? With AI, we can really leverage it to its biggest potential with, you know, mental health. You already see AI being used in the medicine and like the medical field. And they're using AI to be more efficient and so that it can do the miscellaneous tasks where and the doctors don't have to worry about that and they can really have that patient to patient interaction and really get to have that relationship with the patient and creates efficiency. So when AI is honestly, I'm sure we all know this, but when AI is used in the right way, we can make tremendous change. And I think that translates over to mental health as well. Because I think with mental health, there's a lot of work being done, and it's just so nuanced, and there's so many things that are still a work in progress right now with mental health because it's so new. AI can definitely be used for the purpose of efficiency and not replacing the actual work that we're doing because there's humans, it's a humane work, right? You can't replace that with AI personally for me. That's my opinion, but I'm just saying like efficiency is a very big thing with AI. I think we can really leverage it to be something of our good. For example, I think like with policy work, doing the backbone of it with AI, so I feel like is very efficient and we can just get to the actual legislative part of it. Or when you're doing advocacy work or you're trying to do it, like for instance, for me, I'm trying to do event planning. Like, oh, what vendors are good to host this event? Like things like that that just creates that efficiency and you don't have to you waste your brain like waste your energy on those kind of tasks. So I think efficiency is something that can really hone into with AI in the mental health space.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I know that you're in college right now and I'm in high school. So what are your thoughts on like the need for social media safety and literacy in these school settings for student mental health?
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful question. Um, I genuinely believe, again, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about previously about having that discipline and control when it comes to the consumption of social media and what we consume and how much of it we consume and having that discipline and control. I especially it's hard to control in academic settings, right? Like what we consume, it's very person to person and you can't I know there's new policies in high school where they're taking the phone now and you get your phone at the end of the day whatever the basis is and I think that's a good start. I think just kind of creates that it takes away that codependency that we have with our phones, and I'm guilty of it myself, right? I think it's just also be useful if we actually take mental health seriously. I know we have like mental health awareness days or like month or something, but we don't do anything in school, even in college, right? I'm in college now. It's never really taken seriously. There's nothing being done. It's just like, oh, mental health day, and we just move on to do what we're doing, move on with our days. I think taking it seriously and actually doing something about it and being consistent with it is so important. So like honing into your hobbies, whatever takes care of your mental health and controls that and whatever control means to you, whatever that definition means, and actually being a little bit more disciplined about what we consume because I think overconsumption is very dangerous and creates to that, overstimulation. We're constantly seeking that dopamine hit. Like we're like, oh, and we just get so like what is the word? I'm like trying to look for it. We get so like um desensitized. There we go. We get so desensitized because we're just consuming so much and that's not good and I think it's just about that control. There's not I feel like the policy is good to have some control in the academic setting by taking away your phone when you're trying to learn, I think is a good step. But obviously with precaution as well, we do need our phones for a lot of our assignments, things like that. So I see the debate that's been going. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I totally know the feeling of seeing so many mental health like awareness days and that not really doing much because the next day it's just the same again. But I know that, you're leading a lot of impactful initiatives. So if you could change just one single thing about how schools are handling tech and AI use, what would it be?
Ooh, great questions. Um, for me, how we're handling tech and AI in schools, I think, I think it's a very cliche answer, but I think just reverting back to old school habits, I know it's very much hard right now, especially that everything is so technology based and everything is online. But I think reverting back, at least taking some time out of your day, 30 minutes or something in an academic setting where we're actually on pen and paper and just going back to old school principles. For me, also, I'm working on a current project where I go into a school every week and talk about mental health and have sessions and creative activities regarding mental health. So some kind of break between what they're doing constantly, also regulating the use of ChatGPT because that's been, very, very used in the wrong ways. I'm sure we all know that, but using it again in the right way is very important. So I think just talking about like um, AI proficiency and like how to use these skills for the better and not for doing the actual task, because that just creates that um yeah, I'm sure we know what it creates, but it just kind of creates something that we're lacking in knowledge of because AI is doing the literal task that gets our that knowledge, right? And actually working on our work, I think is very important. Obviously, doing those like miscellaneous tasks that we don't need to spend like our energy on is I completely agree. But I think one thing definitely is just kind of limiting our use on chat and what we're using ChatGPT for, and or any kind of AI platforms like Copilot, whatever. I think definitely kind of using those mental health awareness days as like actual sessions where, maybe counselors or psychologists come in and talk about mental health, do creative activities, so that something tangible that students can take away, I think is very important as well. And that's what I'm trying to get at and start that process too, with these kind of weekly check-in kind of activities that I'm wanting to do. But yeah, I think there's a lot, honestly. This conversation can go on forever with what we can do, what is lacking. But I think there's always, I think what I want to end off by saying is like just take that first step, whatever idea, whatever you want to do, take that first step um, with it. Especially if you're passionate about mental health in that sense, even with students in the academic setting.
Yeah, so that ties into like one of my last questions for advice to others, especially youth who want to create change in their community. So you would just suggest, just starting with whatever idea you have, right?
Yes, I think you'll see all the YouTubers or LinkedIn posters, like the ones that are consistent active. Like the one main thing that everyone will say, and I will also say that I'm also working on by what I'm saying too, it just kind of like reaffirms for me as well, is that like yes, like whatever you're thinking about and you want to do it and you're genuinely passionate about it, literally just do it. I mean, again, we have one life, we only this one precious life. And when you're in your deathbed, and not to sound cynical, but like when you're there, you're thinking back in your life and your accomplishments, what you've done. You don't want to live your life with regrets, right? So I think it's just crucial if you have an idea, if you have the energy, if you're passionate about it, just go for it. I mean, what you're honestly like everyone will say this too, like your 20s, like your teenage years and your 20s is the years where you're experimenting, you don't have that much to lose, so why not, this is a golden time to experiment and do what excites you, do what scares you, and but just do it. Even if it scares you, just do it because it's just important to have that experience, but also you can look back and be like, wow, like I actually really did that. And now that creates that confidence and also that portfolio check of like proof and examples that you've all like you've done these things that scared you, and you're leveling up in life, already by doing that.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and I think it's really important to keep in mind. So, lastly, where can listeners find your work? The links will also be in the description.
Yeah, definitely. You can find my work honestly on my LinkedIn, which is just Lipika Devara, my name. That's where just like my work is just constantly being updated. But for Aw's resources, you can just go to at a.w.e_NGO. That's our Instagram social. And honestly, that's a lot of our socials. And you can look on our Instagram, we have a little card where we just have a bunch of our resources on there, and I will send you the resources over to you, Aditi, and you can, do your thing. But yeah, that's the shameless plug.
Yeah, I'll make sure to include those. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights. I'm pretty sure they will be very helpful to people who are listening. And thank you to the listeners as well. And if you enjoyed the episode, please share it, Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. This is Aditi reminding you to keep calm and mental health on.